In this episode of Aging Unscripted, we explore the phrase, "You're not the boss of me," and why autonomy is so important as we age, and how families and care partners can support health, dignity, and joy without taking control. Welcome to Aging Unscripted, a podcast with a different view on aging. Here we explore a wide range of topics aimed at honoring, celebrating, and supporting the aging journey. I'm Jill Vitale-Yassam, and I am privileged to serve as the president and CEO of Christian Living Communities, a nonprofit senior living organization based in Denver, Colorado. In studio with me today is Pam Sullivan.
Hello, everyone.
And Pam's our vice president of communications and philanthropy. And then we have two awesome guests with us today. We have Angela Allen, who is our vice president of clinical services. And Angela has been in this field and working in aging services for 20 years, more than 20 years now. And Clint Rasti, and Clint is a dietitian that works with all of our communities, our Christian living communities. And so we're super excited to have you here today. This is going to be, I think, an interesting conversation, and it can get a little touchy.
It can be. Yeah.
And it's what we want to talk about today is how sometimes conflict can arise when an elder is making decisions that other people might not agree with, right? And that could be the adult child. It could be the helicopter daughter like me. It could be
The care partner in the community.
It could be the care partner in the community.
Yeah.
It could be the doctor.
Could be the
nurse. It could be the dietitian.
Yeah.
And you know, really how that kind of way, that the way that we view that and the way that happens, how it impacts people. So are you guys okay with digging into this? Because this could be really interesting.
I'm ready.
You ready? Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I would love to hear from both of your roles. What's your perspective on really supporting people and maintaining autonomy as they age?
Yeah, I think just to start off, just maintaining autonomy means hopefully checking in with people and kind of asking questions versus assuming or making assumptions about anything, which we can all do very easily. And I think it's really setting boundaries and defining, you know, what is my role in this and what part do I play? Am I going to overstep or overreach? And do I need to take a step back? Or do I need to, if I'm that person, how can I communicate my needs in a way that is letting people know what my boundaries are and where I'm at and the firm yeses and nos?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Angela, how about yourself? I mean, from a nursing perspective, it's pretty prescriptive what you want people to do. How do you yourself or you train nurses on how to honor autonomy and really help people flourish?
Yeah, well, autonomy is really, for any individual, that dignity and your identity. It's your sense of self. And so for me, my role, you know, even in nursing, is really just to be a partnership. How can I take, knowing the risks, how can I take that but still honor choice? Because choice is so important. Autonomy is so important for individuals in general. When we take away that just from anyone, not just aging adults, but anyone, ourselves, our children, anything, we see results. We see emotional changes, right? And that just changes the perspective for a person and can really change where they're going.
And if you really think about it, we build our autonomy our whole lives. I mean, if you're raising children, you're trying to help them build their autonomy and then go and be their person and be an individual. So why would we think that would go away during the aging process? I think a lot of people don't think about that. And it just absolutely it falls away, and it's a shame.
It is after you've spent your whole life making decisions, right?
Right.
To have somebody say you can't make that decision anymore. That's really rough. Do you have some examples? Obviously, without violating HIPAA, but just any examples of when you've seen something like that happen?
I mean, I think it happens in our industry more than we like to admit. We see it every day. It's really easy to go into a paternalistic place as a daughter, as a son, as a caregiver, as a nurse, because we're trained to know what is best or we want to protect somebody.
It comes from a good place, right? And lots of other places. If you're a family member, it usually comes from love. If you're a professional, it becomes from, I want the best for this person.
Yeah. But yeah, I see it in the small choices.
Yeah.
We all know sometimes maybe the big choices, they are what they are, but it's the small choices. My day-to-day, what am I going to eat? Can I have this? I don't know my diagnoses, but can I have this? I want to eat this.
I think some of the classic examples I can remember is the person who is living with dementia who doesn't remember that they're a diabetic and they want the chocolate cake.
Or somebody who knows they're diabetic and remembers and still wants the dang chocolate cake.
Exactly. How do you, what's your tips for care partners, for professionals, but also for family members on how to navigate that?
Yeah, I think when it runs in my world, which it very often does, because food is that one thing that we can control as we age and what we eat and what we want to have. And even when we're younger, we can make autonomous choices about like, yeah, I know that I have this thing, but I'm not really that worried about it. So we play it off so much easier. But when we see someone else not doing it, we become a little bit of the police over that person. And that can be very hard not to do. And so it's because you care and want the best for that person. But I think gently reminding them that they have the right to choose whatever it is that they want at the end of the day, the same way that you do, the same way that I would want that same thing. Hopefully maybe redirecting into saying like, imagine what it would be like if you were without choice and if you didn't have that independence to choose, what you want. I know it's not easy because this might harm this person, just like you were saying, Angela, that it's potentially putting this person at risk. We need to all be okay with that risk.
So Dr. Bill Thomas, founder of the Eden Alternative, calls that the right to folly, right? That we all have the right to make decisions that other people I think are bad decisions, and it doesn't matter how old we are. Well, kids maybe have there's a little bit of still learning on some, but as adults have the right to make decisions that other people I think are not great decisions. And that doesn't change when you live in skilled nursing or you're 109 years old, right? It doesn't matter. So when you think about that, one of the things that I think about is how sometimes words like that we use in our field, like the way we might chart about things, can unintentionally continue that idea that people don't have the right to make choices. So a couple of them come to mind. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I think about looking at a chart and seeing Pam refused to get up this morning and have a shower. Like, what does that tell?
Well, then
What does that tell the care partner?
What does that set them up for? Yeah.
Right. We're already setting Pam up to be unsuccessful with the care partners. They already have an idea in their mind. She's going to be tough. So I might walk in there and just say, do this. But again, we're not there to tell Pam what to do. We're there to partner with Pam so that she can be successful.
Thank you, Angela. Put me my partner. So what could we say instead of refused?
Declined, or chose not to.
Yeah.
The same things we do every day, right? I don't go and say, I refuse to get up at this time. I will hit this again, this alarm again. I chose a different path, and that's okay. Yeah. Really looking at that. And like you said, we've been making choices our whole life, and some are informed and some are not, but we've been making them. So why do we change that as we age? Why is it not, I've been drinking Diet Coke since I was 7. Hopefully not. But now don't you going to change that?
Right. Probably not. Right. Or once in a while you want something that's not, we all do things every day, right? That are, and then the other one that comes to mind is when somebody says, oh, this is a good one for Clint. I'm going to pick on Pam again. Pam was non-compliant with the recommended diet.
Yeah. So I think, again, you shouldn't necessarily say non-compliant.
Right. Yeah.
And I think, honestly, what should happen is probably a conversation with that person. Is this something that you are interested in? That's very commonly what all of our dietitians do. Hi, you came from the hospital with this diet. Is that something that you're interested in pursuing? Would you like more education or information on that thing?
Heck no.
Okay.
We must talk like heck.
And then
What would you say to that, though?
Right.
I mean, what would you say?
Pam is not interested in, diet education at this time.
Let her have cake. P.S. Pam loves chocolate cake.
What I would say is then you drop it and you just have to let that go. And so that can be the line where people have a difficult time, because I don't need to follow up with, you've made your choice clear to me.
So that's happening within the care community. But then you get me, the helicopter daughter, and who said, okay, my mom at the hospital, they put her on a diabetic diet. She's coming to you. Why aren't you following what the doctor's orders are for the diabetic diet? How do we get the daughter to understand? Because they're worried. They saw mom hooked up in the hospital, and they don't want to see that again, or they are worried about her care. And it's coming from a place of love most of the time. How do we get everyone on board on this whole idea?
Well, you go for it.
Well, I think having the conversations up front about the changes in environment and really saying, let's talk about this. How can we have some shared decision making? And why is it different than in the hospital, what I'm talking about and about making these choices? Because it's usually from a place of fear, lack of understanding. They didn't have a conversation before. What does your mom really want? What do you really want?
That's super key too. And so if we were able to go pre whatever the event was, what can older adults do to make sure their family knows or their doctor knows what they really hold true to their values and what they want? What should older adults do proactively to protect their autonomy?
Start having those conversations with your loved ones, with your family, with anyone you know who will be heavily involved with you going forward, but saying, hey, these things are really important to me. I want to be happy. I want to eat cake. I want to be able to go out. I would rather have this over this. Quality, quantity, I would want that. Cookies make me happy. Cake makes me happy. And that has an impact on your health too, being happy.
Yeah. And do you think also acknowledging, like, I understand this probably isn't the best thing for me to do health-wise, but I'm choosing it anyway, right? Does that,
absolutely.
Do you see people having those conversations?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I think, I know we're focusing on food a lot too, but there's a lot of different decisions also that, let's talk about safety versus, is this a risk? Like, what is that risk? And am I willing to take it?
And then the whole idea of surplus safety, where if you eliminate every risk from life, there is no life worth living, right?
Right.
Bubble wrap people up and suffocate people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But then the one that's coming to mind for me is the car keys.
If you're potentially putting someone else at risk, somebody else at risk, that's a different
That's
story.
kind of maybe where the lines get a little, there's one thing to endanger yourself with a choice, but to endanger others.
Right. That's a whole different
whole other thing.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many characteristics, variables that can obviously play roles in aging and making choices and autonomous choices, because dementia or certain other, factors are going to play into that. I was part of a dementia group that was for friends and people with dementia, and they were asking those kind of questions like, well, what happens? And so I think it's having those gentle conversations about quality of life and what does it mean for this person to just enjoy living.
And that's where things can get really challenging, right? If somebody's living with dementia, and then that, at our communities, there's an ombudsman, right? So every community, every assisted living and nursing home in the whole country has an ombudsman assigned, and we call them in at times, right, to help us work through this. Their job is to protect residents' rights. So, if it's somebody who isn't living in a community, finding someone who can help you work through that could be good, right? Because when somebody's living with dementia, that can get really sticky.
Gets really tough. Yeah.
Have a support group, have people that you can resources and people that you can reach out to is absolutely so smart.
Right.
You.
And just because someone maybe can't drive anymore or someone can't manage their checkbook doesn't mean they can't make decisions about what they eat. Right. So there's we have to see that those different layers that happen.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about how, you're not the boss of me. and those conversations come up, and a lot of times it's from a place of fear or love. How do you decipher when it's something that's bad, like somebody trying to control an older adult? Because we've seen those happen in our settings. How would you go about, or how do we train folks to identify when it's not really somebody who has good intentions for that older adult? How would we advocate for that person or help identify that?
I think it's having conversations, but having training available to say, here are the signs that something's not okay. That now this person who's not making the choices is actually fearful, or that they're making these decisions because they are gaining something out of it. It's not about what is the elder gaining. It's about
Control.
What am I trying to control and why? And sometimes it is coming from a bad place, and sometimes it's still coming from a place of we just think we're doing the right thing. But when that's not the case, it's who is your support around you, whether that is you're in a community, you're out in the community. Who are your supports? Who is your leadership team in a community that you can go to who can help you navigate that conversation? Who are the social workers? Who are the folks that are going to be invested in seeing if there really is an issue?
And law enforcement. I mean, they are trained in helping with that. And I think, I do think there is this undercurrent a little bit of older adults sometimes are seen as vulnerable. And so people take advantage and try and control. And so they don't want to say anything. Yeah. They need to speak up and say and reach out for help. So just, don't let people be the boss of you if you feel like that's not the right thing for you. Right?
I think about, and this is in no way is related to what you just said about somebody doing something bad, but I think about this whole title of this episode, You're Not the Boss of Me. And I think about a resident at Claremont Park who wore an Eden Alternative t-shirt, and on the back of it said, "You're not the boss of me. I eat out there." And I was always like, yes. But I think about him, and I think about how when I first met him, he rode a scooter, and he was just moving into our community. And he said, my kids want me to get rid of this thing. They think it's, they just don't think I should ride this anymore. They're worried something's going to happen. And he said, listen, on a scooter, I'm not going to hurt anybody else. And if something should happen to me while I'm riding my scooter, you need to know that I went doing something I loved. And so that's how the conversation he had with his family. Yeah. And there's just so many examples. And I wonder what advice. I think the challenge is like people like Pam said she's a helicopter daughter. I'm a helicopter daughter. Ask my dad, he'll tell you that. But what advice do you give to adult children who might be, struggling, like anxious about decisions that their parents are making? Or maybe it could be a spouse too.
Yeah, it could be a spouse too, yeah.
But how do you show concern? How do you maybe help people make decisions without trying to take control and without driving yourself crazy?
I think really getting to know adult children is important. Like they've gone through it with mom or dad just as, for a long time, and really getting to know and how you can speak to them. And sometimes it's relating.
Are you talking about like professionals getting to know anybody?
Even if it's our friends, right? But knowing the adult children and saying, can you relate? Like how would you feel if I took this away?
Oh, I see.
And it might not be taking away the same thing, but really putting it into perspective, and a lot of times it's going to say, they might come back and say, yeah, but my mom is, 30 years older and, might be living with dementia. Well, but put it into this perspective. If right now I took this away from you, how would that make you feel? Because regardless of cognition or where we are, feelings remain. So when we take away different choices, the feeling from having a choice taken away, we still feel that. Even if cognitively or, our minds aren't the same, we feel the impact of what's happening to us. And so really trying to help them understand that and feel it.
That's a really good example.
Yeah.
And I think it's sometimes also just like helping affirm, like there's lots of people that are going through this. You're not the only one. There's other people you can reach out to for support. And I think sometimes the fear is that you're going to make a wrong choice that is ultimately going to be detrimental to this person.
Yeah.
And that could be really hard. I work in meals, right? And I say, hey, don't worry, this meal is not going to make or break. Like, they can do it. Like, they can have this thing. And even if it's meal over meal, it's okay. You're not making, this is not the thing that is ultimately it's going to increase their quality of life. It's going to help them sustain. And so recognizing and affirming that person that it's okay to be scared that you're going to make the wrong decision, or, that something might be going on, because that ultimately might be a real fear that they have.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
It does. It does. And I think, there's the loved one and the care partner's perspective, and then there's the older adult's perspective, who's also probably coming from a place of fear because they're having things happen to them that they don't understand or don't like or don't want to have happen to them.
Right.
So I think really understanding that on both sides of the equation, that some decisions and some reactions may be based more in fear rather than in love or in logic. And having that just nugget of understanding can really help the conversations.
We would all do better to give each other grace in those conversations when we're talking to our loved ones or anything else. I might act out in anger if I feel like you're taking away my joy.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that I might say something that's really harmful or hurtful, and then we internalize that a lot. And so I think we should all be like, it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about Dr. Al Power, who is a geriatrician who specializes in dementia support. And he says, he has said that he believes a lot of times when people strike out at somebody or hit somebody, a lot of the things that happen when individuals are living with dementia is the loss of autonomy.
Yeah.
Right. And so when people don't have the words anymore, so there could be, I have the words and I'm going to say something hurtful to you. But if I can't express myself anymore, I'm going to tell you some other way.
Yeah.
And so really understanding that too is if we're seeing that, it could be that we've taken away that person's right to choose.
Absolutely.
And they don't have the words to tell us, but they're going to tell us somehow. So really digging into those things, I think that's really important.
And you really touch on something that maybe you have a couple of tips, because you do have to get creative at certain points in time on how do you preserve autonomy and choice. So what are some creative ways when really there's not a lot of options available, or somebody may be nonverbal? How do we still create choice without manufacturing choice? You know what I'm saying? It needs to still be authentic, but still having choice. I mean, maybe some concrete examples.
I have a food concrete example.
Of course, that's what you're waiting for.
So very often in our communities, especially in like a skilled or an assisted living environment, people will come back from a doctor's visit or from a hospital stay with a newly textured diet. And it's new to them, and no one wants that.
Well, you talk about what a textured diet is for those.
Yeah, so that might be that you need your foods chopped up or moistened with like sauce or gravy or something like that. And then ultimately, it could mean that there are foods that you are restricted from eating because it could potentially put you at risk. Like bacon is a number one example of those things. Or, right. Or
And
like
pureed bacon just is not the same.
not the same at all. Or like crispy French fries, or like anything that has hard outer textures like berries or anything like that. And so in our world, I will very frequently get asked to come in and provide, leadership on, hey, this person is refusing their textured diet. So they're using that language, right? And I'm like, no. Let's reframe and like think about it differently. Let's try and honor their choice while mitigating risk and see if we can offer them an alternative. So offer an alternative of something that might become comparable to whatever that item is that they're having. Or is it just this one time that they want this one thing? So can we accommodate this person in this one instance and like make note of it or whatever it might be? Or is this a hard line and a boundary for them? And talking to your IDT team or your interdisciplinary team about like, hey, just letting you know, I spoke with Pam and she said that she wants bacon and she's going to have bacon. And I'm going to say, and that's her right to do that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's great. Let's put that in
great.
there. And so you work through that process.
Mm-hmm. And seeing how you can minimize risk, but still, if there are ways to minimize it, all right.
I come to, do they just want French fries this one time? Or can we offer like a dipping sauce that softens the French fry? Or like, can we do some, or a cheese sauce or something like that, that is different? Or are you sure you want bacon? Or can we give you some Canadian ham with some gravy on top of it? Or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's a great example. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm curious, as we start to wrap up, what if you thought about, so this happens a lot, right? We think about older adults, and especially if somebody's experiencing frailty or living with dementia, there's a lot that there can be paternalism, right? Well, we know better and we need to make these decisions for people. What would it look like? What could it look like if we all saw this a little bit differently and people were supported in making just their own choices? What do you think what could be the impact to people if we consistently, and I'm talking about us, not just children or family members, like us as providers and all of us together, really supported people making their own decisions? What impact could that have, do you think?
Well, I think you would see a complete mindset change, a paradigm shift, if you will, but really changing it to, I'm not here to manage you. I am not here to control you. I am here to support you without judgment and have a partnership, have that true shared decision-making. And that environment builds trust. It speaks to respect for the human, for the individual. And I think that just creates a completely different environment.
I love that.
I do too.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Right.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that?
I think you would see really dynamic and healthy relationships being built and fortified. And I think you hit the nail on the head with that, trust and seeing that people have the best interests, have my best interest in mind or their best interest in mind. And I think that you would see some really powerful relationship building come out of that.
That's great.
Yeah. And less paternalistic. I'm caring for you. We're caring for each other, and we're going to be on this journey together.
That whole idea of care partnership, right? And reciprocal care, reciprocity. Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh. Well, this is not easy stuff, as we said at the beginning. This can be really messy. And anytime there's emotions and love involved, like with family members, things get super messy.
Yeah.
And anytime people are passionate about their work, things get super messy.
Completely.
People caring for people is messy.
Yeah.
But we just wanted to have this conversation with everybody out there just to get people thinking about it a little bit and maybe give you some ideas on how you might think about things differently. We really appreciate you being here, Clint and Angela. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who joined us today. We would love it if you would subscribe on your favorite streaming channel and then send this episode or any of our other episodes to your family and friends who might benefit from it. And thank you to all our listeners and viewers for joining us today for Aging Unscripted. A reminder that aging is indeed unscripted. Please subscribe on your favorite streaming channel and share this episode and others with friends and family who might benefit from the information. Each of us has an aging journey that is as individual as we are. Not everyone gets the gift of aging, and it is something that should be honored and celebrated. Thanks for joining us today.